Here I've modelled the equation x plus 4 equals 6. I'm going to solve the equation by doing the same to both sides and removing 4 positives from the side with the x, and then also doing the exact same thing to keep the equation balanced and remove 4 positives from the side with the other side of the equation. This gives me the answer x equals 2. I can check my work by replacing the x with a 2, and sure enough 2 plus 4 equals 6, so I know that I've got this correct, x equals 2. Here I've modelled the equation x minus 3 equals negative 5. Once again I can remove similar things from both sides of the equation. I'm trying to get the x by itself. So I'm going to remove 3 negatives from the side with the x. Now it's by itself. And then to keep the equation balanced, I also need to remove 3 negatives from the other side of the equation. This gives me the answer, x equals negative 2. And again, I can check my answer here. If I put that negative 2 in place of the x, negative 2 minus 3 equals negative 5. This equation modelled the x minus 3 equals 5. Here I don't have the same things on both sides of the equation, so I can't immediately start removing. Here I'm going to need to use 0 pairs to cancel out the 3 negatives on the same side as x. Because I added 3 positives to the left of the equation, I must also add 3 positives to the right side of the equation. I can cancel out my 3 0 pairs, give me an answer of x equals 8. If I check the answer at x equal to 8, 8 minus 3 is 5, so I know that I've got my answer correct. In this equation we have more than one x. We have 3x equals negative 6. When you have more than one x, you will need to divide both sides of the equation. Because we have 3x, we're going to divide into 3 groups. And when we look at one of those groups, we can see that x equals negative 2. Again, I'm going to check my work. I'm going to replace this x with a negative 2, and 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, so I know that x does equal negative 2. Here's how we put all of this together in what we call a 2-step equation. First, I'm going to get the x's by themselves, so I'm going to remove 4 positives from each side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then don't forget to do the same on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've now simplified it to 2x equals 6. So I now need to, because I have 2x, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I can see that 1x is equal to 3. I can put this into my equation just to make sure that I'm correct in thinking that x is equal to 3. So I'm going to replace the x with a 3. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 4 is 10. So x does in fact equal 3. Here's another 2-step equation. 3x minus 1 equals 5. My first step needs to be isolating the variables, the x's, on their one side. I can't just take away the negative 1 because I don't have a negative 1 on the other side of the equation. So I'm going to have to use 0 pairs. So I'm going to add 1 to the left side so that this makes a 0 pair, can match that by adding 1 to the other side. The 0 pairs cancel out, leaving me with 3x equals 6. I can then divide my equation by 3 and see that x equals 2. I'm going to put that into my equation just to check to make sure that I'm correct. So I'm going to replace the x with a 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Minus 1 is 5. So x does equal 2. The final type of equation that we're going to talk about is multi-step. Here you'll notice I have x, the variable, on both sides of the equation. First I want to simplify that so that I only have x's on one side of the equation. I can do this by, again, doing the same to both sides. If I remove these two x's on the one side of the equation and then do the same on the other side of the equation, I've simplified the equation and still kept it balanced. My equation is now x minus 1 equals positive 1. Now I can solve it just like a regular equation. I need to get this x on the left by itself. I'm going to cancel out the negative 1 by adding a positive 1 to make a 0 pair, and then also add a positive 1 to the other side of the equation. On the side with the x, the positive and the negative cancel each other out because they make a 0 pair. X equals 2. I can check my work by putting x equal to 2 every place where x appears, also over here. So 3 times 2 is 6, minus the 1 is 5, and then on the other side of the equation, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Since 5 equals 5, x equals 2 works to solve the equation.